Joining us now from Virginia is Democratic Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan. Congresswoman, thank you for your time. I want to start with your reaction to what you heard from Congressman Zinke about the budget process. Where do you see things right now in Congress?
Well, I think right now this budget is going to make the tax cuts permanent on the backs of millions of Americans losing their health care and millions of Americans losing access to SNAP benefits. And the one area I vehemently disagree with my colleague on is on the work requirements, because states that have put work requirements in place have found that the administrative cost is higher than the savings. Arkansas was struck down by the courts after hundreds of thousands of people who were eligible for Medicaid were kicked off, not because they weren't working, but because they couldn't follow cumbersome paperwork requirements to prove that they were working. Georgia, who has work requirements in place, has seen the same thing. And in Virginia, when we expanded Medicaid, we looked at work requirements and found they were more trouble than it's worth. And right now, if Virginia had to implement work requirements, it has no system in place to do that. The administrative cost to create and run that system would eat up any alleged savings that Virginia would get. But the reason that the states expanded Medicaid was because the uninsured still get sick, and the uninsured wait until they have to go to the emergency room when it's much more expensive to treat, and it raised costs for everybody else. So the state's incentive to expand Medicaid was the fact that it brought down healthcare costs, that it kept rural hospitals from closing their doors. And my state and a number of other states that expanded Medicaid are very worried that this budget will unwind all of that, jack up the uninsured, at least 13.7 million people who will become uninsured under this bill, and those costs will be passed on to every other American in their health care costs.
Okay, turning to that trip overseas, we're hearing some anxiety on the right now about some of the moves that President Trump made on the trip. You heard Congressman Zinke talk about acknowledging Syria and lifting sanctions there. That makes Israel a little nervous, and that makes some on the right anxious, and potential détente with Iran. Former national security aide to President Obama, Ben Rhodes, said this: "It's so clearly the right decision. I don't know why Joe Biden didn't do this. Sometimes you just have to try something different." There is a lot of understandable criticism from Democrats about some of the president's priorities, but Trump is doing some things that neither President Biden nor President Obama would have tried because of the blowback from Israel and the right. Is that true? Is there truth in that?
I would say yes, this president is trying things that other presidents wouldn't, and not all of it is good. I would say that in going in, and in the case of Ukraine and in Gaza and Israel, victimizing even further the victim and bullying the victim in the case of Ukraine into submitting in negotiations rather than bullying the oppressor is something that many presidents would not do. And I'll tell you what no other president would have done is violate the emollients clause of the Constitution and take a $400 million plane from a foreign government that is illegal, and even my Republican colleagues are very concerned about.
I hear you, and I definitely heard Democrats say the same thing in the first Trump term, right? And the scale here is much larger, and we talk about the emoluments clause and all of that stuff. But Republicans are not going to do anything, and Democrats are in the minority. Does something change here, or is this just a replay of the first term at a much larger scale?
You know, I think you are starting to see the court step in, and I think seeing my Republican colleagues push back is encouraging, because one thing I have noticed about President Trump is when the blowback gets big enough, he backs off a little bit. Now, whether he will do that with this plane, time will tell. But we are starting to see on a wide variety of issues, like the mass deportations with no due process, the court stepping up to do its job to put a check on this president who has overstepped his authority under the Constitution multiple ways. I wish Speaker Johnson would do the same, because he is the only person that can sue on behalf of Congress But we are seeing our states step up. We are seeing private citizens step up. And at the end of the day, the court is doing its job to hold this president accountable. But more importantly, the people are pushing back. Even people who voted for President Trump are very concerned about a number of his actions, not only the plane, but by not using due process and kidnapping people, putting them on a plane to a prison in El Salvador with no due process whatsoever, and now seeing American citizens, young children with cancer being deported. I am hearing from even people who support President Trump that they are concerned by this. And at the end of the day, the people and the courts are going to be the ones to put this president in check.
There's a lot of ferment inside the Democratic Party right now as the new revelations come out about former President Biden and why somebody didn't intervene sooner to prevent him from seeking a second term. Given what we know now about the degree of his decline, during the 2024 campaign, the Biden campaign chose you to carry the message on air and around the country that he was ready to serve another 4 years. Knowing what you know now, how do you see it? Do you feel like you were misled, or where do you sit in this?
My interactions with President Biden never gave me reason to be concerned about his health or his mental acuity. And today, I have not had a single constituent call me about Joe Biden. I have honestly not had time to think about Joe Biden because I am focused on dealing with the issues that my constituents have raised to me since January 20th. And that's fighting these Medicaid cuts, that is fighting back against the denial of due process to American citizens. And look, I don't know whether what's in that book is true or not. But I am focused on what is happening right now, the harm that President Trump is doing right now, the harm that this budget will do to the American people right now. And that's where my focus is and will continue to be.
Okay, Congresswoman, thank you. All right, if you were from Dinwiddie, you would know her already. But if you don't, there she is, Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan. We thank you for your time.